book of Esther. You can find Nehemiah, Ezra, Nehemiah, and then Esther comes along there. And somebody asked about nurseries for Friday night during the preaching service, and yes, any kind of a preaching service will always have a nursery. Where's Mrs. Grissom? Will we have a nursery? We will now. Amen. And also now I'm announcing there's a nursery workers meeting after the sermon tonight to find them. If you could help Chandra out with nursery Friday, that'd be good. What a great thing. What a great place. Thank you for your faithfulness. I love seeing our buildings full. Can you find Esther chapter 2, and then go back if you can find the book of Ezra as well. We'll be in both these in just a minute or two. But I mentioned this in the teachers meeting. I don't know. I can't guarantee it's God's will we get this school a couple of blocks behind me. But it'd sure be a blessing. I'm very confident it would be a great tool for the glory of God. But it's up to him. We don't have any money. We're just doing what we're doing here. But if you think of it, Lemon Street, behind us is Canyon, where the high school is. The next street's Bundy Canyon. The next street's Waite. And then the 4th Street is Lemon. And if you go on Mission Trail, turn right on Lemon, the school's there on your left, 11 acres. And I tell you right now, if Kirk Beard could buy that for what they're asking, he would buy it. It's to get 11 acres and buildings for $2 million is a bargain. But nobody's going to do that, I don't think. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. And I know we're not going to do it, that's for sure, because we don't have $2 million. But if they gave it to us, we could do something. We have that much. We could afford that. And so if you think, drive by there and just slow down as you drive and pray. Don't get in a wreck. We don't need you to die unless you have a big life insurance policy with the church as the beneficiary, and it happens to be $2 million. But just take time to pray. I'm excited about what God is doing here. Just, our church, look, our church is always full. Wednesday night it's full. Brother Mo, you travel. What churches are full Sunday night and Wednesday night? And Sunday morning. A lot of churches are full Sunday morning, but this is an amazing place. It always has been. I told somebody once, I said, I'd like the chance to just have an auditorium we couldn't fill, just to see if we could do it. But we've always maybe underbuilt, I don't know what, but we've always been able to fill a tent. And if you can fill a tent, you can sure fill a building with air conditioning. But you pray, if you would, for God's direction. And we only want God's plan and God's purpose. But let's pray. Look at Esther, book of Esther. And if you look at chapter 2, we're going to read a couple verses here and there in Esther. And the message tonight is God's people have always been different. Always been different. Look at Esther 2. Let's stand for a moment. If you make sure your phones are off, you need to stretch, that'd be fine. You need to slip out for some reason, do that now. Let's not be a distraction. Don't preach very long. Let's not interrupt things, though. So if you look at Esther chapter 2 and verse 5. Now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Remember Kish and a Benjamite, that's where Saul came from, the son of Kish, some years before. Verse 6, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, the king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. And the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took her for his own daughter. And so it came to pass, when the king's commandment, his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together to Shushan the palace, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also into the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, the keeper of the women. And let's pray. Help us, Father, tonight, as we look at these simple lessons, and may they be clear in our hearts and minds, and may these things lodge deeply in our soul as we face a crooked and perverse nation, a society that is so anti-truth, and a culture of darkness. And we pray for help here tonight, that we would get these truths deep in our hearts and our soul, in Jesus' name and for his glory. Amen. You can be seated. And the scripture's a story here. Most of you are familiar with the story of Esther. If I could just real quick take a moment and run back. There was, if we were to go in a timeline from back here, Saul was the king, and And then he messed up, and David was the king, and his son Solomon became king. Solomon did well for a while, and then Solomon messed up, and under his son's reign, the kingdom was split. The northern part of Israel called Israel, and the southern took the name Judah. And so most of the time from this point on, if the Bible says Israel, it's talking about the northern kingdom, 10 different families, 10 tribes. And if it talks about Judah, it's the southern half of the kingdom. And they had a civil war, basically. They did have some fighting over it for a while. And off and on they fought. But that's where the kingdom happened. Now the northern half, in about 722 BC, they were carried away captive to Assyria, to the north. And that was because of their sin, because they got away from God. By the way, America owes God big time. No, maybe reverse it. God owes us. He owes us to be carried away. And by the way, the folks from Assyria, right on down to 586, when the southern half, Judah, was carried away by Babylon, just so you know, it was Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia. It was that group of people God used as his sword. The Bible says of the wicked, which are thy sword. Those people are God's sword. And he used those people to punish his people. Of course, then when it was all over, he beat the stuffing out of them. But if there is a rise of that group of people in the world today, he's probably going to use those people to whip on his children. Because how backslidden we are. And I don't know, and I hope that wouldn't happen, but just so you understand, God's in charge. Nobody's running rampant around this world out of control. Our God is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. All we need to do is stay close to God. So anyway, the northern kingdom, Israel, is carried away by Assyria about 722 over a series of years. Southern kingdom, Judah, carried away around 586, some years later, of course, and again over a course of years. Nobody walks in and one day wins a war over there, especially hand-to-hand combat. So the kingdoms are now carried into captivity. Judah, Israel fall, or Jerusalem falls, and they're carried away to Babylon and under Nebuchadnezzar. And then 70 years is the captivity they had. And then under the authority of the king, he says, if you'd like to go back as a Jew to rebuild the temple, I'll pay the bills. And so the command is made of Cyrus to rebuild. And so a bunch of the Jews come back in the book. This is the book of Ezra. We'll read some of it in a minute. And then after a while, some years later, Nehemiah, who worked for the king, he heard that the walls were still disheveled and a mess, and he got burdened about his homeland, and he went and helped challenge and rally the people to build the walls. And so then Jerusalem was built and walled, and some sin, by the way, there's never been a king since then. They're waiting for the king to come. And there will be a king in Jerusalem one day. What a day that'll be. So, but during this captivity time in here, that's when the story of Esther comes along, because it says there that Mordecai, his uncle, was killed, and his uncle's wife was killed, and this daughter, Hadassah, or Esther, she was homeless and orphan, and so he adopted his uncle's daughter. Now that's the kind of thing that happened. We look at Daniel, we think of Daniel, oh, hip-hip-hooray, this great guy Daniel. Probably had his family all killed. Probably they were either taken away as slaves and scattered, and he's here, and his mom's there, and his dad's dead, and his brother's killed because he's a soldier and older. You know, we have no idea. These are hurting people, hurting times, and difficult days. And so those people in Jerusalem that were carried away, of that group of people, we find Mordecai and his cousin, his uncle's daughter, Esther, and they are in, according to chapter 2, verse 5, in Shushan, the palace. There's a palace area, palace grounds, and somehow Mordecai is there. And so we find Esther and Mordecai located in the area around the palace. And if you know the story, the queen, Vashti, got into trouble, made the king mad, and she didn't jump into his wild party as he wanted her to, so they booted her out, said no more queen. And they thought as punishment, they'd get rid of her, and they'd go looking across. So they searched the kingdom through all these girls to find the next queen. And God arranges it so that Esther becomes the next queen. So now we've got Esther as the queen and the king, and it's not an arrangement like you and I would think, not anything like it at all. She's got her own place she lives, and he's got his place, and they go a month, and with the story, one time a month, they hadn't even seen each other. She hadn't been invited in, but she was the queen. She had some authority and a position, and the king's there. Well, Mordecai, he has some kind of business that kept him around the city walls, around the palace walls, and that's where we come into the story. And let's look now, if you would, at chapter 3. So we're in chapter 3 and verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. Now remember Daniel, how Daniel behaved himself wisely, and Daniel got moved up in the chain of command? Well, that's what Haman did. Haman, through whatever gifts or skills or leadership, he was working his way up near the king in this kingdom, and so he was promoted very high in that kingdom. And so if you look at verse 2, we notice there's a king's command. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. Now stop for a minute. The king could take your life. You have no authority. But the king said, look, I just made Haman this position. That means you bow before him. Just like in the military, you have that rank, I have this rank, I salute you. Only in this case, you bow down. That's what you do. That was the law. I'm going to look at the end of that verse, the end of verse 2. But Haman bowed not, nor did him reverence. Look down at chapter 5. So right off, Mordecai said, I'm not bowing down to no man. I don't do that. Chapter 5. The story going on in the book of Esther is not the point here. The point is Mordecai. Mordecai made Haman mad because he wouldn't bow down to him. Sometime later, Esther's negotiating a business deal of sorts with the king regarding Haman. And she invites Haman and the king to a special banquet she was going to prepare. Well, Haman is just so up. He's so excited. Man, just me and the king and the queen. I am in there. It's like me and the corporate CEO. This is going to be awesome. And coming back from the invitation, he sees Mordecai. And it just makes him so mad. Look at chapter 5, verse 9. Chapter 5, verse 9. Then went Haman forth that day, joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Now, the sermon tonight is this: God's people have always been different. We're different. Understand, like in the days of Daniel, this kingdom had 120 provinces. They ruled from Ethiopia down in Africa, all over that area of the Middle East, and he was in charge. There were people from every country, and they'd scatter them. They'd pick them up from here and put them there. They'd pick them up from there, and they tried to dissolve national unity. They tried to dissolve ethnic unity because that was for peace. Because there's only a few of you, and you're mixed in your marriages with these people and those people. Pretty soon we water down our convictions and we water down our national beliefs. And pretty soon, by the way, I believe our president or the devil or whoever's doing that right now, if we can get enough people in America who don't honor the Constitution, who don't honor the flag, who don't really care about liberty and justice and don't care about work ethic and all, they're going to water down what we stand for. And then elections don't matter, because if we don't all believe the same basic things, who cares about an election? And that's the value system being destroyed in America. Thank God I have a home beyond the river. This isn't my home. This is a country I love. I love it. I love where I am. I'm a patriot. But I'm going to give this thing to God. It's up to him. But so these people were scattered all over in their belief system, just like well, we'll get to it in a minute. So just to quickly get to the point here, here's around the palace wall, there's all kinds of people from all different countries. And the rule is, stand up when Haman walks by and bow before him. What's the problem? Mordecai just sat there. You ain't nothing. Now, that's provoking. He really, he was not cooperative. And I'm sure there were, what there really was, you read the story, there were some guys saying, hey, why don't you stand up? He said, because I'm a Jew and we don't bow down to no man. I bow to God only. And the people said, when he comes by, let's point at him. You know, look, when you don't bow, you become the object of people's attention. Hey, look at that girl. Look what she's wearing. I want you to know she ain't listening to you. Look at that guy. Look how he acts. He doesn't drink. It's the company party. It's the family New Year's Eve party. It's the 4th of July family reunion. Hey, they don't drink at all. You know what? The world's always mocking you. We have always stood differently. You're not weird. You're normal. Weird. We've always been weird. The people of God are misfits. Because, see, the rest of the people around the wall, they don't care who Haman is. They don't worship Haman. But you know what? Look, what's the fuss? Just stand up when he comes by. Bow your head. Let him walk by in his arrogant egotism. He'll mess up. The king will chop his head off, put it on a spike. Some other dude's going to come by. I'm not getting in trouble over bowing before a guy. Because most of the world has no conviction. Most of the world has no grit. They have no absolutes. They have no determined loyalties. But the people of God, we've always been different. This is nothing new. God's people have always been different. Young people don't get pulled away by words like nice. So, yes, can't we differ? And can't we just be nice? Only if you back off. You'll hear this in your Sunday school lesson next week. Adult teachers, your lessons are over there as children and adult lessons, but we're starting out Romans chapter 12. Yeah, I'll be nice, but if you push me, I can't be nice. I can't be nice. It's not possible to be nice. Because if I'm going to hold my ground in my belief system as you push me, I must push back, or I will have to fall back. I'm not unkind, you're just not moving me. And the harder you push, in order to maintain my position, the harder I must push back. It's your pushing me that is determining my thrust back. And you line up at, I was mentioning the teachers meeting, you line up across from McGill that rides Connie McDowell's bus route. You line up across from him. He's the most humble, gracious guy out here. He hugged me yesterday or the other day when I saw him and coming out of church this morning. I said, hey, look, Miguel, stopped him, said, have a good week. You need anything, you call me. He said, thank you so much, Pastor. I will. I really appreciate it, preacher. He loves me. But if I lined up opposite him in the line of scrimmage, we'd have issues. No, I would have issues. He wouldn't have any problem at all. The guy's a moose. But you understand, if you're going to hold your ground, there are things you must do. And you Christian young people especially, the culture right now in the young adult areas, look, let's just be nice, man. Why have to be so cantankerous? Because they're pushing me. You don't push me, I will not be cantankerous. But you're trying to push that hemline up further and further. You're trying to get us topless and backless and frontless and shoulderless, and you push and you push and you push. And I will push back. There's got to be somebody man enough to make a stand. You want to push on the Bible issue and let anything that's got a leather cover be called a Bible. At some point, somebody's got to say, stop it. Don't mess with my Bible. I've got the Word of God. I'm not mad at you, but you try to push junk into my church, into my family, I'm going to stop you. Somebody's got to do that. Somebody's got to make some decisions. And in our culture of warm and fuzzy and nice, people say, why don't you just act like a Christian? I am. I'm standing right here and I'm not moving. That's what a Christian does. Well, you're so angry because you're pushing me. I'm not angry yet. You have not begun to see anger. Try pushing my children. Try pushing into our family. Try pushing into our home. Yes, I have an attitude. I have an attitude towards the internet. I have an attitude towards television. I have an attitude toward the garbage. I have my car worked on. I sat for an hour in this little lobby area, and I heard more filth and more suggestive and more inappropriate. And finally, I got up and walked outside. I thought, I can't sit here. I was sitting there reading like this out loud. I was really trying to block out the filth on evening TV. I was shocked. We don't watch TV. I was shocked at how dirty it was. It was before they closed at 7, so somewhere between 6 and 7, I finally said, I just can't stand this. And I walked out. And if I had a way to throw a brick up there and claim it was an accident, I would have. But there were no bricks, and it was way up there in the corner. But don't buy into this. Well, why don't you just be nice? We are nice. Leave us alone and we're nice. I don't care who has their own belief system, their own ideas, but don't start attacking what I believe to be true and honest and right. I'm not mad at anybody, but you start getting into my front yard, I've got a problem. God's people. Look, Mordecai didn't have a problem with anybody in that kingdom until they said, how come you won't bow? I'm a Jew. I don't do that. Oh, let's see. Let's see how far he'll go. Let's see how much let's just see if he really believes something. You that have been in the military know more than me, but our pastor in Reading, Pastor Blue, said he was in the Navy in World War II, and he said he had people try to force liquor down his throat. Why? What's the point of that? So he could be stupid like them? Everybody didn't have to drink, but there's some, see, if he'd have drank occasionally, they wouldn't have minded. But he didn't drink. Zero. No alcohol. And that offended this crowd. And as Mordecai sat outside the gate, or near the gate, or around the walls of the palace area in Shushan, it became a big deal. Hey, guys, look over here. Hey, Haman's coming, and Mordecai won't bow. Well, now it's a big issue to to Haman. Because now as he walks by, everybody's watching to see what Haman's going to do. And this thing's escalating. Mordecai didn't care. He didn't care if the whole world bowed. But he wasn't bowing. He wasn't bowing. Why did it become such a big deal to Haman? Best day in Haman's life, everything was going great in his life. But his anger and his fierce wrath toward Mordecai built up inside him like a pressure cooker, and he was going to explode at this guy. Could not stand him. God's people have always provoked people. We didn't do it on purpose. Think about Daniel's friends. King comes along and says, see this big old image? When you hear the instruments play, you got to bow down and worship that thing. They said, no, we ain't bowing down. Look, there are people everywhere bowing down. Who cared about 3 guys? But you know what? I guarantee if you were there are people saying, hey, they're not bowing. Hey, and the little comments. They won't do this. They won't listen to that. They won't wear that. They won't bow down. The music's playing. And pretty soon, the leaders came over and said, why won't you bow? Well, it's just our faith. We're Jews. We don't bow. We don't bow down before statues. We just don't do that. Well, now they're drugged before the king. King says, what do you mean you won't bow before my statue? We don't do that. Look, you're not weird for not bowing. God's people have always been different. We have. They got thrown in the lion's den. And what did they say? Then the king said, who is that God that will deliver you? They said, well, just so you know, our God can. Now, whether we will or not, it's another story, but just so you know, we're going to be delivered out of your hands, king, either by the fire or by God, but we're not bowing. Thrown in the fire, Jesus shows up in the fire, chilling with Jesus. Everything's okay. The king looks in. We're not 3 men. I see the 4th one. He looks like the Son of God. Come on out, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he said, you really meant it, didn't you? Yeah, we really did mean it. We're different. See, the people of God have always been different. You're not martyrs of a new culture. Young people growing up here, you're not the freak that somehow has been dropped into a society and you're thinking, what do my parents think of me in this church and these weird ideas? No, God's people have always been weird. We've always been misfits. Daniel, little rule made, can't ask a petition of anybody for the next 30 days. Why'd they do that? Because there were some guys who said, we're going to get rid of Daniel because he is so good. You walk clean enough, people get mad at you. And they tried to catch Daniel in some wrong. And finally one of them said, look, the only way we're going to get him is with his religion, because he won't bend. This guy will not bend. So they sweet talk the king into signing a proclamation. Oh, king, you're so wonderful. You're so holy. You're so the high and mighty. Why don't we make a rule that no one can pray to anybody but you for the next 30 days? The king said, ha, ha, ha. I like that. Stupid men. Men are so vain. So he signs it. Well, he liked Daniel. So as soon as the proclamation is signed, whoever asks a petition of any other god than the king, he's going to go in the lion's den. Now they're watching. Oh, now we'll see. See, the world's watching you. They're watching how you act. They're watching how you live. They're watching your relationships. That's why some of your marriages are under such attack. Because the devil wants to prove that you don't really have the faith you say you do. And they're watching you. Yeah, there he is. Sure enough, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. There's windows open. See, there he is. He could have prayed with his windows closed, but Daniel didn't change what he did. You see, God's people are always a little different. Open those windows toward Jerusalem. Got on his knees, bowed his head toward Jerusalem, and prayed 3 times a day. They arrest him, throw him into the lion's den. And Daniel said, see you in a bit, king. No, he didn't know. He didn't know that what God was going to do. We know. We read the story. It's a great story to us. It's not a great story to Daniel. Don't be stupid. Daniel didn't know God was going to deliver him. There are a lot of God's people died in those days as they were dragged across the land. Daniel had seen his parents and his family and his church and his king and the whole country destroyed. What made him different? King cries out, Daniel, to God. The king fasted all night for Daniel. The king loved Daniel. He didn't want him to die, but he made a rule, stupid rule. I want you to understand that we as God's people, we're not weird. We've always been different. And we need to decide that expediency is not the reason we make decisions. Expediency meaning I'm not doing this because it's going to work out nice. I'm doing this because it's right. We are more and more seeing girls on guys' sports teams. We don't play ball against girls. It's amazing to me, there are guys that put their girls in wrestling uniforms, wrestling out on the mats against boys. And the big thing is they can beat a boy. Just what I want my boy to marry, some girl who thrives on beating a guy. We don't play against girls. You want your girls to play? We ain't playing. We don't. Now, we'll go so far as to say if your girls, cheerleaders, have skirts above their knees, we don't play either. What are you? We're different. Always have been. Always going to be. You know, we're weird. We are. Look back to the book of Ezra. You find Ezra chapter 4. Let me just make a statement our preacher taught us. And he said this, I would rather do right in a wrong way than do wrong in a right way. That's where I started. You know, sometimes we're wrestling with conviction. We're wrestling with what we believe and how to exercise that belief. And sometimes we're not real nice. But the fact is, I would rather stand right and offend somebody than stand wrong and have everybody like me except God. Now, if I can, I'm going to stand right and I'm going to be good to people and please them. But if it comes down to, I don't know how to do this. I'm just human. I'm just flesh. And I wish I was divine. Jesus didn't do real good at standing right and pleasing people either, by the way. And I'd love to stand for right and keep my conviction and not offend anybody in the process, but I'll tell you, it's awful hard when they're standing here trying to provoke you. It's awful hard, young people, when they're pushing you on purpose, when they're watching you on the job. They're looking at how you handle things. They're trying to catch you. And there may come a time when you're just going to have to say, look, if the world gets offended, I'm not changing. You may cry. Your heart may break. You may lose friends. You may lose a job. You may lose relationships. By the way, 50 million Baptists before you lost their lives because they said, we're not going to bow. and countless millions beyond that who weren't Baptists, who were God-fearing, Bible-believing people. We are a people who have stood different. And sometimes, as much as you try to stand right and be good, it's just hard because of the pushing and the shoving and the emotion, and because we are flesh. I would love to not offend anybody, but I'll tell you what, you talk as much as I do, preach as much as I do, and try to figure out how to say things in a way that would help people without making anybody mad. Good luck. There are people who come in mad. And I had a guy mad at me out here a while back. Came in and he was mad. What are you mad about? You don't have any drums. Yeah. Neither does Dairy Queen. Neither does Taco Bell. Yeah, but you think it's wrong. Hey, look, you want drums in your church? There's a dozen. Pick one. Yeah, well, you think you're better. I don't think I'm better than anybody. We just don't have drums in our church. I almost wanted to say, we tried, but the guy was so bad, we kicked him out. You know, they're watching you, and they're pushing you, and they're provoking you. And let's be honest, you get pushed far enough, sometimes you push back. And sometimes you're not. Look, I think we all ought to be nice, but I'll tell you what, I'll be right and not nice before I'll choose to. And I'm not saying I'm never going to be wrong, but I'm not going to choose to be wrong to make you happy. That's why I can't look at Facebook. I can't. And it's nothing to do with you. It has to do with the compromising preachers in the world. Man, I just get so mad. I want to preach a sermon. Shut it off. Delete it. So I post things on Facebook so our church knows we're in the Philippines or we're out of town or we're traveling, whatever. I'll post things. But I just can't. I can't read. It's really, anyway, I'm flesh. I'm carnal. I'm a heathen. All right, you find Ezra yet? Ezra chapter 4. In Ezra's day, you know the story, I mentioned it earlier. They've been in captivity 70 years. They're back to Jerusalem, and they're starting to rebuild the temple. Now understand what happened, as I mentioned before, when they conquer one kingdom, they take their key people, bring them to the nation's capital, whether it was Shushan or whether it was up in Syria, wherever. But they leave the poor that are uninfluential, or the ones who aren't likely to lead a rebellion. Then they'd bring people from this country, mix them in there, and take some of their people, mix them in there. And they're just trying to create peace. I mean, they weren't hating anybody. It was just, the king wants peace in his kingdom. He wants lots of money, and he wants everybody to be subservient to him and get along. That's what our president wants. He'd love everybody to just serve him and let him do what he wants. And that's a fact. Anybody that's watching it at all knows that's what he'd love to do. And that's what most demagogues want. Most tyrants want that. They don't want war. They just want everybody to think they're wonderful and do exactly what they say, even though they have no right to have an opinion. So Ezra is there, and the people are getting, Ezra's probably not even in the story yet. In Ezra chapter 4, he comes in, but trying to get this thing rallied. And in chapter 4, look at the story. It says, now, when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin, remember that's the southern half, heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord God of Israel, then they came to Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is the first one that came over. Ezra came and joined him later. Ezra was there with the Bible in his hand as a scribe, a man of God. He kind of sparked things in a little bit. Then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers and said unto them, notice this now, they're just building the temple. And these enemies or adversaries of Judah and Benjamin, they said, let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do. As we do, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, the king of Asher, which brought us up hither. Remember I talked about the moving of people and the displacing of people. They said, we serve your God like you do. Look at verse 3. Now wait a minute. What's the problem? These people just want to help you pick up bricks and put them in the temple. I know they're not Jews, but they've lived here since this Esarhaddon guy brought them there. You're building the building. They want to come and build. Well, for one thing, they were the adversary. They were in an adversarial position. They were provoking. They walked in with an attitude. Now, you be careful. There are going to be people who walk into your world and pretend, oh, let us help you. They've criticized you. They've slandered you and your family. They've made fun of your children, and now they want to come in and join you. I'm sorry. No. You mock my marriage, you mock my children, you mock my values, you mock my church. No. Well, why? They just want to help. And then some wimpy, flag-waving, no conviction person goes, you're the Christian, you just really need to be nice. Look at that next verse, verse 3, but Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said to them, you have nothing to do with us to build a house unto our God. But we ourselves together will build unto the Lord God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, hath commanded us. Now look, do you understand that's not a real popular choice? They didn't make any friends in that. And I'm sure there are people standing around thinking, look, this is a big job. Take all the help you can get. Someone comes and says, look, preacher, let the state accredit your school and let's get some money to help with this. We got more kids who want to be in our school than we can possibly afford. Bring in the state. Every dollar is attached to a string of control and authority. Somebody comes along, look, fire regulations, fine. Safety and building and safety, fine. Beyond that, stay off our property. This is God's church. This is your church, is the people of God. And if somebody wants a different kind of church, there's churches all over. They can join one, or they can go down the street, buy a piece of property, start their own church. But Joshua and Zerubbabel say, you know what? You've never liked us. You've never been on the same page with us. You've criticized us, and no, you can't help us. That's not a very popular choice. By the way, there's a whole lot of people who want to push into your life that don't really want to help you. They want to deteriorate in the road. I won't get into that. All through the Bible, these unpopular choices are made. I mentioned the teacher's meeting. I'm going to tell this story. Through high school, 3 years of high school, I dated the same girl. And I'm against high school dating, by the way. I don't think it's a sin. I don't kick anybody out. I have no authority to kick anybody out. But I do urge parents and young people to not do it. And I've been watching this thing since I was in high school, but as a pastor, 32 years. I can tell you, teenage dating causes more hurt than help. Simple as that. Call me unpopular or whatever. But if you like a girl and you're a guy, I am happy that you like girls. It is a very good thing these days. But this girl and I, typical, I wasn't saved. I didn't, great home, good. I enjoyed life growing up. For my sophomore year, this girl and I get into college and I got saved and it was just so obvious we were different. She ended up getting saved too, but we were just opposites and fought and argued. And so I'd say, look, this is done. We just can't. We just both need to go our own ways. And then my phone would ring a week later. And I did not get a text because they had not invented texting, nor cell phones, nor the internet, nor computers. We still use stone tablets for letters, chisel out letters. And she'd cry, oh, I miss you. Can't we try again? And my mom's here. She'd tell you. It went on and on. All right. I don't like to fight. Let's just try again. And that would last for a while. And then we'd break things off again. And drama. You don't need that in high school. You don't need that. Parents, your kids don't need it. And I'll tell you what else your parents, this is off the subject, what your parents also don't need. You don't need your daughter to say, oh, the other girls have a boyfriend. I wonder what boy will like me so I can fit. You don't need that stuff. We don't need in our school, in our youth department, a trend where every guy and girl have got to be paired up. It is not healthy. It causes more hurt, more frustration. I'm not saying it's a sin. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just telling you it creates a lot of ripples that are not good. I want you're a junior, senior in high school. I want you planning the will of God and seeking God's direction, and a girl's face cannot trump the will of God. Find God's plan, get there, and when you get in the will of God, the right guy or girl will be there. And that's where you want to find her. That's when I found my wife, and I just decided, you know what, I'm done. I'm done looking for girls. I spent my life trying to find a girl. I'm done with women. 3 days later, my mom set me up with my wife. But she always talked me into coming back. I'm not mean. I'm not unkind. No one that's ever known me personally would ever say I'm mean and unkind. I'm not. I'm very passive. But she just pushed her way into my life over and over. And finally, I thought, this has got to stop. And I was so ugly to this girl. I mean, I cranked up the ugly valve. Man, I was ugly. I can't even tell you I didn't cuss because I never cussed. I was an unsaved person that cussed. To me, cussing is a sign of your lack of education, your total lack of self-control, and your lack of maturity. But I did, you're ugly, your mama dresses you funny, and any guy who you must have been stupid, but he's not stupid anymore. And she just bawled. It was just demoralizing. I never want to hurt people, but I hurt her. I hurt her on purpose. But man, she just kept. Girls are persuasive. Girls are demonic. Girls can get you to do all kinds of things you don't want to do. Us poor guys, right? Poor men. Amen, Brother George. Park on that. And I thought, she hates me now. I'm safe. The bad thing was it was Valentine's Day weekend. And without thinking, I planned ahead, Mr. Plan Ahead. I'd sent flowers to her dorm room. So the next day when she got to the dorm, there were flowers waiting for her. I called the floor. I said, can you get those flowers back? No, sir. I said, look, I'll pay you double. Go get those flowers. Break into the dorm. Call the CIA. So my phone rings. You sent flowers. Yeah, that was before I broke up. I don't care. If you guys ever hated yourself, I've hated myself a lot of times, all right? And most of it was around women. Acts chapter 4, and we got to close. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts chapter 4. Now, that incident, by the way, she's a good girl. She got saved, married, stayed in church. I don't know, I haven't seen her in 20 years, but more than that, probably 30 years. But she, one of my friends up there sees her on occasion, Reading area. She's still in church. We just weren't the right pair. But I had to put my feet down because I was being pushed a direction I could not go. And I wasn't man enough to just graciously walk away. And sometimes you don't know how to stand, and I want you to understand, it's better to stand right than to stand wrong. Now, the best thing would be if I would have been man enough to just say, no, this isn't going to work. And when the phone rang, no, click, no, click, no, click. But I'm not man enough. I'm just not. I'm a wimp, spineless, jellyfish, invertebrate. But I stood. I stood. And God's people have always stood different. Acts chapter 4, look at verse 18. Acts chapter 4, verse 18, and they called them, his disciples have been out preaching, causing some grief with public preaching. The folks from the big mega churches in the valley were offended by their public declaration of the gospel, and they were offending people by their preaching Jesus. In chapter 4, verse 18, and they called them and commanded them not to speak at all nor teach in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John answered and said unto them, whether it be right in the sight of God to hearken unto you, more to God judge ye, for we cannot but speak the things which we've seen and heard. So when they had further threatened them, they let them go, finding nothing how they might punish them, because the people for all men glorified God for the miracle, for that which was done. For the man was above 40 years old, whom the miracle of healing was showed. The story, they healed this man who's at the gate begging for just money or whatever, and they healed him. And then they preached, and people got saved. Oh, it made everybody so mad. And so the authorities came and said, look, you can't do this anymore. You're done. And they said, no, can't do that. We cannot but speak the things which we've seen and we've heard. We will preach Christ. By the way, all this Education Month stuff, you put a young person 30, 40 hours a week in a public school, they cannot but speak the things which they've seen and heard. That's why we need schools for our young people. Paul was different. The apostles were different. Daniel and his friends were different. Mordecai was different. In case you didn't notice, Jesus himself offended a few people along the way as he stood. When I was in college in Washington, I had just gotten saved on a Wednesday, left for college on Saturday, and of course God orders our steps so wonderfully, and he's so merciful in how he pulls things. And And the coach was a Baptist and encouraged me in my Christian life. But before basketball season started, I was there, and I was in one of the fraternities. A bunch of guys, they tried to get all the athletes in this one college fraternity. And everybody wants to be wanted, so I joined the fraternity, and they did a bunch of stuff for me. Well, there was a big party, a fraternity sorority party. And by the way, this is 1975, and liquor ran like a river in the colleges, and it is no different today. You put your young people in a university, liquor is going to run like a river. The Coke machine in our fraternity house had no sodas. It had different brands of beer. It is a hellhole, morally and ethically. Drugs and liquor and a mockery. Fools making a mock of sin. Big party. Everybody wanted to go. I'm a college freshman. I'm just brand new at college. I want to go. I'm standing there with a glass of 7-Up, Coke, whatever, just some kind of soda in my hand. Had an open bar, all the booze you wanted, free. But I've been reading my Bible every day. I've been reading by the hour. I mean, as a young Christian, I just began to devour the Bible. And this is just weeks, maybe months at the most into my Christian life. But I've been reading my Bible and reading it 2-3 hours a day. And I'm standing there at that party with that drink in my hand. I'll never forget it. I'm looking around the room, and I realize nobody in this room knows what's in that glass. But me and the guy at the bar. And I set it down, and I walked out. It was the last time I was ever at a party of any kind. I knew from reading my Bible that at some point you've got to step away and stand differently. You just have to. That same quarter of my life, few months of my life, there was a big campus party. The campus parties couldn't, if they were on campus then, they couldn't have any liquor. There's no liquor. And a girl I'd met going to a little Saturday night Christian group, she was there, and not boyfriend, girlfriend, just a girl I met, and she was a Christian, and I was, and somebody I knew, and all the young people were there, and there's a live band, and hundreds of young people everywhere, and it was just a big food, dancing, band party, and we're standing there, and we're over on the side against the wall, and I'll never forget, she's standing there, and it's like the same moment the light bulb went on. I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we said, "What are we doing here?" We just knew. That nothing against them. Look, they can have all the party they want, but we didn't belong there. God's people have always stood differently. Now, I didn't care how many Christians were in that room. It's none of my business who was saved, who wasn't, but I knew, I'd been in my Bible enough, I knew that wasn't my crowd. I couldn't be in that crowd. I couldn't be in the drinking crowd. I couldn't be in the carousing crowd. I couldn't be in the sleep around crowd. I couldn't be in the pornography crowd. I knew I had to be different. And this was before I even started going to church. I had not yet been baptized, but I got saved, and I believe I was baptized by the Spirit of God. And I believe that there's something in me that said, you need to be different. And then I don't want to encourage you. The people of God throughout the ages have always been different. Jesus said to not be conformed to this world. Paul said in Romans 12:1, we're not to be conformed. We can't fit into this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Peter said in 1 Peter 2:11, dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust that war against the soul. You know what we are? We're strangers. Hey, you young couples, you get a chance to get that apartment, that little house, that rental place or whatever, and maybe you get to buy a house, and these young couples around trying to get you to be involved in their social life. You're pilgrims. You're not going to fit. You're strangers. And the closer you get to God, we're not a bunch of critics. We're not hateful. But we've always stood differently. And you push us, we will push back. Because we won't give. You push me to give on my Bible, I'm going to push back. You push me to give on standards and separation. You push me to bring compromise into our church. Look, it's just a fact. The closer you are to this book, the more weird you're going to be, because this world hates that book. They burn the book. They outlaw the book. They hate the people of God. And I'm not going to be made to feel unkind. Not when we run a dozen buses all over the community telling people about Christ and all the money and hours. We say, no, there's nothing unkind here. We love people. You hate anybody who's not just like you. Oh, you didn't look at those who rode our buses this morning. You didn't see 280-pound Miguel hug me this morning in his shorts and his ponytail and his T-shirt. No, we love people. We love people. But you push us. We stand differently. And we won't bow. And we're not going to quit loving, but we're not going to quit doing right either. And you should not, wherever you draw your lines, the child of God, relax. Draw your lines. You are weird. All right, let's pray. Father, help us tonight and bless us, and may we have grace. You know, I'd love for us to be able to have grace and to stand. But if we can't, may we have grace to stand. Millions of people put their heads in the chopping block. Millions of people were burned at the stake simply for not baptizing their babies. They stood on something that most would call small. Millions of people would not give in joining a state church. John Bunyan's years in Bedford jail just because he wouldn't take a license to preach. They stood. And lots of others stood. And I pray you'd help your people tonight to graciously, kindly stand. But when they can't stand kindly, help them to stand. Mordecai was not popular in town, but he stood. May we do the same, Father. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand just for a moment with our heads bowed.